Hi and welcome sa channel. So today I will present to you a few interesting benchmark results. I recently tested my RTX 3070 with my older test bench of Ryzen 3 3100 and I realized a few things. So I bought a Ryzen 7 5800X to join in the mix ng aking benchmarks. So this benchmark data of RTX 3070 and 5800X was also very interesting. So kaya niretest ko yung GTX 1650 and 6500 XT and pinair ko siya with the 5800X. Note na hindi lahat ng games kasama, so wala dito yung COD, Apex Legends, saka especially for Far Cry 6 na parang may major update sila. So hindi nagme-make sense yung benchmark nung binalikan ko, no? As for COD and Apex Legends, hindi naman pantay yung settings ko. Sa 3070, it was on extremely high settings, while on 1650 and 6500 XT, nasa low yung settings. So hindi pantay yung graph kung titignan. So dapat kasi parehas yung settings para makita mo talaga yung performance. So yun, hindi ko sila sinama dito sa benchmark na to. The mix of 5800X is also in line with some of the comments from my previous video about my benchmarks on not being specificative. Note that only the combination of processor and GPU was changed. So yung motherboard is still a B450 Aorus M, which is PCI-E Gen 3. The RAM is still 16GB 3200 MHz dual channel CL16 RAM. So here are the benchmarks. For CSGO on 1080p auto high settings, on Ryzen 3 3100, you'd notice that GTX 1650 and RTX 3070 are almost at par in the 160 FPS range. However, kapag i-upgrade natin yung processor to 5800X, there's a huge uplift on the 1650 and 3070. And you'd see a better picture between these graphics cards on this game. Lamang si 3070 by 80 FPS on average against 1650, and lamang naman si 1650 by another 80 FPS against 6500 XT. For 6500 XT, we find this GPU to be really bad for CSGO. I even had a discussion on my benchmark previously with a commenter and we both noticed the same. So hindi ko alam kung bakit, pero likely driver issue na lang ito. Note that yung 3070, kahit i-pair ko siya with 5800X, it is still CPU limited. Ang GPU usage ko lang dito ay nasa 40 to 60%. So pwede pa tumaas yung FPS ni RTX 3070. For CSGO on 4K, RTX 3070 paired with Ryzen 3100 had 135 FPS. When I paired the RTX 3070 with 5800X, it had 240 FPS. So almost double yung gain. The GPU usage of RTX 3070 with 5800X is 97 to 98%. So almost wala nang ibubuga yung GPU at this point. For League of Legends on Ryzen 3 3100, the 3 GPUs are almost at par at 190 FPS range. On Ryzen 7 5800X, the 3 GPUs are still almost at par in the 400 FPS range. So note na hindi ito yung full picture ng mga GPU as the GPUs are underutilized. However, this is the picture of the processor, no? So yung limit ng Ryzen 3 3100 is nasa 190 FPS and yung 5800X naman nasa 400 FPS. For Valorant on 1080p, similar to the previous titles, the GPUs are almost at par on Ryzen 3 3100 at around 190 FPS range. However, if you upgrade to 5800X, there is a huge uplift on the 6500 XT and 3070, and you'd see a better picture between these graphics cards. Lamang si 3070 by 60 FPS on average against 6500 XT, and lamang si 6500 XT by another 70 FPS against GTX 1650. Note na both RTX 3070 and 6500 XT, even if paired sila with 5800X, are still CPU limited. For RTX 3070, yung GPU usage ko nasa 35 to 42%, while sa 6500 XT, nasa 70 to 98%. So may kaya pa ibuga yung 2 GPUs at this point, no? For Valorant on 4K, RTX 3070 paired with Ryzen 3100 had 185 FPS. When I paired RTX 3070 with Ryzen 5800X, it had 359 FPS. So 174 FPS or 94% uplift. The GPU usage of RTX 3070 with 5800X is at 94 to 96% range. So konti na lang yung ibubuga ng GPU at this point, pero kaya pa. Kumbaga, kaya pa mataas yung FPS. For FF14 benchmark on 1080p, what is interesting here kahit i-upgrade ko to 5800X yung GTX 1650 and 6500 XT, hindi gaano tumaas yung scores nila. So this is 69 to 71 FPS for GTX 1650 and 82 to 84 FPS for 6500 XT. In fact, bumaba pa yung sa GTX 1650 when I upgraded to 5800X. However, 3070 benefited from the upgrade by around 40 FPS by using the 5800X. Also, unlike the previous games, malayo na rin yung FPS score ni 3070 dito. This is because at this point, GPU limited na yung game. So, hindi na kaya ng GPU natin bumuga pa ng FPS. Do note na the GPU usage of RTX 3070 kahit i-pair siya with 5800X is at 65 to 98%. In short, marami pang ibubuga yung 3070 sa game na ito. For FF14 benchmark on 4K, so RTX 3070 paired with Ryzen 3100 had around 71 FPS. GPU usage is already at 98%. When I paired RTX 3070 with the 5800X, it had around 73 FPS. No? So GPU usage is around 98 to 99%. So making the 5800X upgrade very insignificant for this game and resolution. For FF15 benchmark on 1080p, this is similar to FF14 benchmark. Kahit i-upgrade ko yung GTX 1650 and 6500 XT from Ryzen 3100 to 5800X, it didn't make any significant difference. So that is 4,000 scores sa GTX 1650 and 4,400 sa 6500 XT. Again, for 3070, it had a significant uplift from 10,179 or 101 FPS to 12,080 or 120 FPS. GPU usage ng 3070 at this point is around 96 to 98%, which is not bad. Pero may pwede pa siguro ibuga if I upgrade the processor to 5950X. For FF15 benchmark on 4K, RTX 3070 paired with Ryzen 3100 scored 5,363, which is around 53 FPS, and GPU usage hovered at 98 to 99%. When I paired the RTX 3070 with 5800X, it scored 5,625, which is around 56 FPS, and GPU usage hovered at 98 to 99% then. For me, this FPS uplift is insignificant considering the huge upgrade of the processor. No? For Forza Horizon 4 on 1080p Ultra, for this title, 6500 XT had an insignificant difference when the processor was upgraded to 5800X. That is from 54 FPS to 57 FPS. For GTX 1650, the performance increased from 67 FPS using 3100 to 74 FPS by using 5800X, which is around 10% uplift. No? Again, for RTX 3070, it had a significant uplift from 129 FPS to 181 FPS, so an increase of 52 FPS. However, it is also worth noting na sabi sa benchmark results, GPU limited lang yung game by a very low 14%. So ibig sabihin marami pang pwedeng ibuga si 3070 at this resolution of the game. For Forza Horizon 4 on 4K Ultra, RTX 3070 paired with a Ryzen 3100 had 107 FPS on average. When I paired RTX 3070 with the 5800X, it had 113 FPS on average. Again, another insignificant improvement considering the upgrade of processor. For the Shadow of the Tomb Raider on 1080p with the highest preset, again, another insignificant difference for our entry-level cards. So may increase pero 2 FPS lang for both GTX 1650 and 6500 XT. For RTX 3070, there was an increase from 110 FPS to 156 FPS. Note that the game is also GPU limited lang for RTX 3070 at 69% of the time, so just nice. For Shadow of the Tomb Raider on 4K with the highest preset, RTX 3070 paired with Ryzen 3100 had 59 FPS, while when paired with the 5800X, it had 60 FPS on average. So again, another insignificant improvement considering the upgrade of the processor. For Far Cry 6, as told earlier, nagkaroon ng parang major update itong Far Cry 6, making my initial findings invalid. So hindi ko na isasama yung GTX 1650 and 6500 XT on this chart. However, if we look on 3070 on 1080p, it had another significant increase from 75 FPS to 107 FPS when I upgrade my processor from 3100 to 5800X. So that's around 32 FPS difference. However, yung usage ng 3070, even if it is paired with 5800X, is still at 88% to 93%. So may pwede pa ibuga si 3070 at this point. On 4K, 3070 paired with 3100 had 54 FPS on average, while it had around 55 FPS on average when paired with a 5800X. So in both cases, GPU usage was around 99%. So kaya medyo insignificant na yung CPU upgrade at this point. Okay, conclusions. So if yung game mo is GPU limited na, kahit anong upgrade mo sa CPU will not make a significant difference. So this has been seen with AAA titles on 1080p using GTX 1650 and 6500 XT. And this can also be seen with RTX 3070 on 4K on AAA titles as well. So let's agree na lugi ka if gagamitin mo yung RTX 3070 on 1080p games, as it isn't fully utilized and the GPU is best to be used on 4K. And this will sound weird, pero I think sayang ang pera mo sa high-end processor. So as we speak, I think the best processor for RTX 3070 are the entry-level ones, such as the Intel i3 12100 or 12100F, as it makes sense during gaming, no? So yung mga higher-end processors, you will spend more with 1 FPS gain. So I don't think it's worth it. However, for esports titles, I think we have to agree that 6500 XT is terrible at CSGO. Sadyang mahina siya. The 1050 Ti outpaced 6500 XT on CSGO. However, it's very good at Valorant. And the inverse is true for GTX 1650. Okay sa CSGO, pero not that good sa Valorant. Does it make sense to pair a high-end processor with these GPUs, no, for esports titles? Yes, if you have a high refresh rate monitor to match the FPS. Otherwise, stick to i3 or Ryzen 3 and pair it with the GTX 1050 Ti. For esports titles, it also makes sense to pair RTX 3070 with a 5800X. Pero again, kailangan mo ng 4K 240Hz na monitor para hindi sayang yung FPS na binubuga ng GPU mo. So I hope you find this benchmark results very educational and interesting, no? When I first tried the RTX 3070 benchmark, medyo nawirduhan ako sa results on most cases, especially on 4K. So if you're going for a 4K gaming rig, most games will be GPU limited at this point. So you don't need to spend that much for a processor. Although parang mukhang tanga yung PC mo kasi meron kang RTX 3090 for example, and then yung processor mo is 12100F. So again, thanks for watching. I hope you find this video educational. Do like or dislike this video, comment, and subscribe for more unboxing. Bye!